Welcome to The More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate. I'm Rebecca Cushmiter, and with me as always is Garth. Party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth. You guys missed your line. Anyways, I'm happy to be joined on the mic by DJ McGuire.
Who is not under any subpoena or indictment, so I can post pictures of myself whenever I want to.
Okay, but I'm going to advise that you make them tasteful.
That was assumed.
I'm just offering my best legal advice as a person who has never studied any kind of law. Also, Greg Matuzak.
Before we even get started, I want to just throw this out that I think Congresspeople have to address each other in the future with only alliteration and with only description, because this week's been awesome in that sense. But it's good to be here. Your common sense liberal from Cincinnati, Ohio.
And Kevin Kelton, whose name is alliteration.
Actually, this week, I think I feel like the Amy Winehouse of politics.
They're trying to make you go to rehab?
Well, because I think if the voters leave me to go back to Trump, I think I'm going to have to drink myself to death.
I mean, I think we've all thought that at times this week. The one person who probably wants to drink himself to death and might actually be in the process of it, though of course we wish that on no one in real life, is former mayor of New York, America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, who ended his birthday party.
He got a gift. He got a gift from Arizona. A process server from Arizona arrived at his birthday party, and Greg, you'll love this part. He stood there and sang happy birthday. He stood, the process server was at the party and sang happy birthday before serving Rudy Giuliani with the subpoena.
Did the process server get, cake also? I mean, did he just sort of blend in? Because that guy deserves some sort of award. I mean, that is awesome.
He definitely deserves a slice of cake. A large one, I would say.
My favorite part of this, and I'm not sure if you guys were aware, was, and I know DJ is, because he kind of alluded to it, is that 24 hours previously, Rudy was tweeting out pictures saying, you know, if they don't indict me within the next 12 hours or 24 hours, they've got to release this whole thing because I'm so tricky, which I don't think is how laws actually work.
Well, how would he know? It's not like he understands. Oh, wait a second.
He was a lawyer.
He was a prosecutor.
Yeah. I mean, and it's kind of, the tweet has been eliminated or deleted, as the kids say, but it's just awesome that he would write that, and then it was like a wish fulfillment. It was like he told someone his wish, like, oh, it'd be great if I got served tonight, you know.
Yeah. So first of all, I did not know that story about the happy birthday, which I think is just the cherry on top of the icing on the
chef's kiss. Mwah.
Yeah. What I love about it is when I first read this story, there's a quote where it was either Rudy or Rudy's political advisor, and somebody pointed out, why does Rudy Giuliani at 80 years old, after everything he's been through, have a political advisor? But this guy was at the party, and either Rudy or his political advisor said they stormed the party like they were storming Normandy. And I'm thinking, hyperbole has its place, but I think two guys probably wearing suits and ties, I'm guessing middle-aged guys, show up at your party and hand you a subpoena or an indictment, whatever it is they do. Doesn't sound like the Normandy invasion to me. Does it to you?
No.
Yeah, I don't know why Rudy Giuliani would have a political advisor when he isn't technically in politics.
I think it says something about how the Trump entourage think they can fix this, that Rudy's more interested in having a political advisor than a legal advisor.
I don't know if he can get a legal advisor. Isn't he on the hook for some bills that he hasn't paid?
Yes, he went bankrupt. In fact, as I've mentioned on the podcast before, my nephew was representing one of the women that is suing him, and that case is now on hold because apparently when you declare bankruptcy, all of these claims against you are frozen. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense because they have to restructure all of his debt. and the legal claims, I think, are lower on the priority list than like bank loans and shit. I don't know. Yeah. I've never declared bankruptcy or been sued.
I think we've said this before on the show, and I don't know if it's like a warning tale to the young folk, but it's just amazes me how at one point he was America's mayor. He had more goodwill and, authority than really anyone else. I mean, he was beloved by this country. And then within 10 years, he's a laughingstock that's getting summons at his own birthday party. I mean, he's the punchline of jokes.
As someone who has lived in New York, not during 9/11, but, I'm a born and raised New Yorker, I challenge the myth that Rudy saved anything. I think he was probably, for a Republican, an effective mayor. I think there's probably some things he did well, but it's not like he turned New York around. And I also question the myth of his post-9/11 leadership. I think he did what any politician would have done on that day. And just the fact that 2 weeks later he showed up in the cold opening of SNL and made a joke doesn't tell me that he's a great leader.
No, but he is now, instead of being considered like some of the great American leaders, he is now going to be like he's the Rob Ford of American politics.
Well, no, I think Rob Ford is the Rudy Giuliani of Canada. But I do want to add, since we are talking about the indictments, this is an indictment in Arizona for election interference. Rudy is just one of many individuals who were named there. Also named in the indictment as an unindicted co-conspirator is one Donald J. Trump. And that also happens to be, in Michigan, where there is also an election interference case, and several people, probably some overlap of who, were indicted there. Trump is not named in the indictment as an unindicted co-conspirator, but the prosecutor has said, or the attorney general has said, he is definitely an unindicted co-conspirator in their case. The reason I bring this up is, right now, I think there's a very good chance that Donald Trump could be the next president. But if he loses in the fall, not only are those 2 or 3 Jack Smith cases and possibly the Fonnie Willis case coming back on track, but there could be superseding indictments in Arizona and Michigan that add him to the charges. So we could be looking, in a beautiful world, at a future where not only does he lose to Joe Biden, but that he is facing 4 or 5 or 6 different criminal court cases where he'll be just claiming that everybody is out to get him. That's what gets me to sleep at night. I think of that like kids think of cotton candy and tooth fairies.
I mean, to be fair, everybody is out to get him. At least everybody on this podcast, given the opportunity, would be out to get him. If we, I'm not saying this is an operant plan for our future, but if he was interested in helicopter travel, that seems risky these days. The Iranian president and was it the foreign minister were just in a helicopter crash at the time we're recording this. It's about 9:15 on Sunday night, May 19th. The Iranian authorities are saying it is still a search and rescue mission. I don't believe they have located the crash. However, not to be too grim about this, but helicopter crashes are not known for their survival rates.
That's right.
And I'm curious about what this means in terms of the leadership in Iran following. I guess there's a vice president who would immediately take over the role, and then there needs to be an election within 6 months. I don't know what their election process looks like. DJ, can you elucidate that at all?
I can tell you it's utterly irrelevant because the president is not the person who runs the country. The person who runs the country is the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, and unfortunately he is still very much alive. How was he in terms of popular support? Like, was he generally liked as much as anybody's liked in Iranian leadership?
Can I take that one?
Yeah.
If he had the job in Iran, he was popular with who he needed to be popular with.
And this is true. And in the sham Putin-like election that they held, it had the lowest turnout in the history of these sham Putin-like elections that they hold. So, yeah, there really isn't a lot of enthusiasm to even pretend that this guy's popular. But yes, he was in with the people he needed to be in with.
So I have a question. I went on to X a few hours after this happened to take the pulse, and sure enough, there's already some chatter about Israel being behind it. Of course, that's nonsense, but it's almost inevitable that Israel will be blamed if this man and the other people that were in the helicopter with him are dead. I wonder what that portends because, I'm old enough to remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I'm old enough to remember when Kennedy was assassinated, and people thought that maybe Russia was behind that, and it became very tense. And here we have two countries that essentially are in a Cold War, and they are both nuclear powers. And we live in a time when conspiracy theories can carry great weight. So what happens if all of a sudden people in Iran or people in the Muslim world start pointing fingers at Israel for this?
Yeah, I really didn't hear much of what Kevin said because after he said he went on X, which we're not, I want to go back to, we're not calling it X. It's still Twitter. So
okay.
Thank you, Greg.
I can't take
I second that motion. Do I have unanimous consent to refer to it as Twitter?
I
Thank you.
can't take you seriously when you say X.
I couldn't take myself seriously when it came out of my mouth either.
But going back to your point, whether conspiracy theory, you're right. There were these theories, and this did happen. But I would like to say that with the internet, this would get better, and it would be disprovable. You're not going to have as much rumoring, but it will probably be worse because of the internet, where verification is not what someone would assume is a necessary step in finding out something like this. Like, is this a real news story? Does anyone have proof of this before they would do something? You will see probably a lot of this, and it could make a major influence on the world stage.
Well, I think it goes back to having influence on the people you need to have influence on. If the remaining leadership in Iran is willing to trust whatever black box report they get out of the helicopter wreckage that says it was a mechanical failure, if it's in their interest for that to be the story, it will be the story. If it's not in their interest, then it will be a completely different situation. But let's be realistic here. If Israel wanted to take down Iranian leadership in a grouping of 4 helicopters, all 4 of them would be on the ground.
Conspiracy theories are by their nature not rational. And using logic to disprove them never works to the people that hold those beliefs.
Oh, I know. I just saw a 9/11 conspiracy theory that was being wielded in recent years by a local school board candidate here.
Oh, yeah.
A 9/11 of course, she also was in an interview recently and said that RFK's book is a really good source of information about vaccines. So she's not to be
Is that the RFK Jr. that lives in Los Angeles, or the one that's registered to vote in Westchester County?
Aren't they the same guy?
He's registered to vote in Westchester County?
Yeah, apparently he's registered to vote in a foreclosed home in Westchester County that no one has ever seen him live in.
So, speaking of rich and assholes, Samuel Alito. All right, this story was so weird. Apparently, photographic evidence has emerged that around the January 6th attack on the Capitol, Samuel Alito had an upside-down American flag hanging in front of his house, which apparently is MAGA for Stop the Steal. Help me. What happened?
Oh, I can tell you what happened. Listen, all we know is the unnamed sources that spoke to the New York Times, and then we know Alito's account. So putting them together and assuming there's some veracity there, one of their neighbors put up a "Fuck Trump" flag in their yard post-election 2020, sometime I think in late November of 2020 or mid-November.
Yeah, I put that on my Twitter.
Then there were some words exchanged between that person and Alito and his wife, in which I believe that there was some cursing involved. And to get back at this person or to try to one-up them, the Alitos decided to fly an upside-down flag, which is a Stop the Steal symbol. Now, I know that everybody is going to agree with me, but I have to say this out loud. Listen, you're a public figure you're going to take incoming, whether it's from the New York Times or whether it's from your next door neighbor. And no matter how bad it is, you don't get to turn around and say, oh, fuck me, fuck you, by doing something as stupid as flying a symbol of the Stop the Steal movement. And I don't care. I don't buy this bullshit that, oh, my wife put it up. It was apparently up for several days, which means unless he was out of town, he saw it and he let it stay. And that means it's his flag on his home, and it's a symbol of his attitude towards the 2020 election.
And what's astonishing is the fact that he and his wife felt that they needed to one-up somebody whose only source of power, presumably, was a lawn sign.
And the vote.
Right. That's what most of us has. We can vote and put up lawn signs. He is a sitting Supreme Court justice. He is the architect of the Dobbs decision. He doesn't need to prove his power or his position. It's proved.
Yeah, but let's remember, this is a man who at a State of the Union yelled, "You lie," at Barack Obama. So his self-control is in question.
I'm looking at his confirmation vote from 2005, and it looks like nearly every Democrat voted against his confirmation. He had 42 no's. So I'm wondering if this is something that they saw back then as this dude could go seriously off the rails. We don't want this.
But it brings into this question of lifetime appointments. There's nothing that we have in our current system that allows us to redress this. And that actually is a First Amendment right that we should have, the power to redress our grievances. And we've got this man who is on the side of insurrectionists, and there's really nothing we can do as citizens. And that's pretty upsetting.
There is something. I mean, our representatives could impeach him. It would never happen. It would never go through. But it's not to say that there's no authority over the Supreme Court. It's just that in our bifurcated partisan politics, those authorities are neutered.
So I'm going to disagree on this. This is the second time in like 5 minutes with Kevin. It will happen. It will definitely happen, but it won't happen anytime soon. The next time, the first time it happens when a sitting Supreme Court judge will be impeached or will come about will be when the Democrats have a majority.
You are so absolutely right, Greg. And I was thinking that earlier this week. So not only do I say you're right, I applaud you for being so unbelievably right.
Right. And the next time there's a majority, they will find
absolutely
some crevice, some little way to worm their way in and say, you know what, you guys got it fair and square, and not.
They are
going
to pull a Mayorkas on one of those three liberal judges.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If Trump gets reelected, within 2 years, they are going to find something on one of those three judges and try to start impeachment hearings.
Yeah, they're going to accuse Elena Kagan of jaywalking.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're going to say that she was not sufficiently respectful of someone. Kid Rock, probably.
Take it to the bank.
So speaking of polarization and debates, Trump and Biden are going to have two of them. One of them in only 6 weeks' time, which is, that gives them almost as much time to prepare for a debate as we have to prepare for these trenchant and insightful podcasts that we do every week without having to run debate camp. I'm just saying that we are better at this than Donald Trump. So what do you think the odds are on both debates happening? Okay, well, we'll go around here. Tell me if you think it's going to be 1, 2, or 0. Kevin?
I think it's going to be 2.
All right, DJ?
I think it'll be 1, and it won't be the one in June.
Greg?
I think it will be the one in June, and it's going to be called One and Done.
And I tend to agree with Greg. I think we're going to get the first one out of... I know. I think we're going to get the first one out of the way. And something is going to go real sour during the broadcast. And one of them will, declare that the other can't follow the rules and we won't be doing this again.
Right. I think there will be like a scanners moment or something. But something will happen. And the rules that Biden has put, and he said these are going to be it. No studio audience. Mics will be cut off, timed. I mean, those are the things that are not playing for the Donald Trump team. But they've already come out and saying, we've got this because he could still go at him hard, and it's past 8 o'clock. They have still made that joke like 10 times. So, and we've seen him follow, we've seen Biden actually follow through. Like when he needs to, and he gets good nights, and I'm not saying this doesn't happen, he'll do it. He'll do fine.
Kevin, what were you going to say?
So, first of all, I want to applaud the Biden campaign because I think they handled this exactly right. And early on, I was not in favor of debates. But when I heard about the specifics of what was negotiated, I now think it's a great idea. I love having one in June because I think Biden, I'm talking about, needs to do something to shake up this race. Because right now, I think there's a 60-40 chance that Trump could win. I also have thought for a while, and may have even said on this podcast, that I think if they do have debates, there should be a rule that once you stop talking, your mic is cut off so that you can't overtalk the other person, as Donald Trump has a proclivity to do. But now that they've got that rule, I'm a little concerned that that might ultimately work against Biden, and here's how. Trump finishes his answer. Biden starts to speak. Trump's mic is off. Biden is speaking, trying to answer, and Trump is still hassling him, heckling him, annoying him, interrupting him. The viewing audience at home may not hear Trump's comments or may only hear a little bit of mumbling of it off screen. But Biden will hear it, and it could throw him off, and it could give the appearance of him stumbling, stammering, losing his train of thought, and people may not understand why, and I'm concerned about that.
I guess that'll depend on whether they pull in for a close up on the speaker, or if they.
Yeah, they should go to split screens, but by the time they go to the split screen, Trump stops talking, and you still get the same effect.
Now that may be something that for the campaigns to negotiate. The idea of Trump on a silent mic trying to talk and gesticulate and getting agitated on camera is kind of hilarious.
Oh, if they can catch it on camera, it's gold. It's gold.
And I expect the good people at CNN and ABC know that.
Okay. So just to help you get to sleep at night, Kevin. So there have been some debates where the candidates are like 10 feet apart, but you also have to remember, like, depending on the stage setup, because of the size of the arena, there have been debates where they have been like 40 feet apart.
Including 2020. The presidential debates in 2020 were like that.
Well, sure, which is good, because otherwise Donald Trump would have given Joe Biden COVID.
Right. Well, that was right. And I think that if they just work it so he's far enough away so that he can't hear him much.
He would hear him. He would hear him. I mean, Trump, for all of his faults, his voice carries pretty well.
For the record, I just want to say that I think Donald Trump lost the election during the first debate in 2020. And it wasn't the moment that Joe said, "Shut up, man." It was the second time, not the first time, but the second time that Joe Biden called Donald Trump Donald. And Donald Trump let it slide. The first time it could have been just distracted. Oh, he forgot to call him Mr. President. The second time it was... He knows. Joe Biden knows what the protocol was, and he opted not to use the honorific with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump let him.
And all of these things are reasons why Trump will find a reason not to participate in the June debate. Right? He thinks he's ahead. Most people think he's ahead. I think it's even, but I'm on an island out here. And between now and then, there's plenty of time for the New York Times Standard University to do another poll where half the voters are rural in their sample and skew it to pieces to give Trump the further feeling that he's ahead, and he will find some reason to back out of it in June. But by September, after the conventions are done, and after Biden gets a Democratic bounce out of his convention, whereas Trump meanders through his acceptance speech and nobody knows what the hell he was talking about. And suddenly it looks like it has Biden ahead, and it looks like Biden is favored to win. Trump's going to panic and say, okay, well, I'll go for the one in September. So that's why I think there will be one debate, and it will be in September. Now, Joe Biden will show up in June. He'll just do, he'll make,
do a town hall. That should be written into it, that if one of them drops out, the other gets the airtime.
Obviously, we're just speculating here, and I love you, DJ. this is not personal. There's no way in hell Donald Trump doesn't show up for that debate.
Well, no, hang on. Let's remember one additional fact about the month of June, or at least late May. It is very likely that Donald Trump's New York case, the lawyers will begin summation on Tuesday, and jury instructions from the judge, and the jury may be in deliberation as soon as Thursday. And we may see a verdict late May, early June, and that could change the momentum of Donald Trump's, if not his campaign, at least his mental state for several weeks. And if if he gets convicted and is flailing around trying to figure out what to do next, I don't think debate prep is going to be top on his list.
There's no way he doesn't show up for that, especially if he's convicted. Anyways, it's just an opinion. That's all.
Like, unless he can somehow write it into the contract that they don't ask him about his conviction.
No, listen, Donald Trump is going to deal, if he gets convicted, which I don't think is going to happen. I hope it does, but I don't think it's going to happen. He will deal with it. Donald Trump, for all of his faults, he bounces back. And the idea that he's convicted by June 1st, June 2nd, June 3rd, and he's not ready for a debate 3 weeks later, come on, guys.
All right, well, we will see how it goes. And you know what? They could each hire some really, really primo debate coaches to help them out, because we have Marjorie Taylor Greene and Jasmine Crockett ready to throw hands and throw words. Were any of you guys watching that in real time, or at least watching the social media in real time as that was happening?
I wish. I
have seen some weird ass stuff go down in Congress when it's after 8 o'clock and they're getting a little punchy. Like, I do recall a representative from Arkansas calling Adam Putnam of Florida a howdy-doody looking Nimrod. That's a quote. You can look it up. But I have never heard a member of Congress call another member of Congress a bleach blonde, bad-built butch body before. And actually, frankly, I think we could retire all of Congress, because it's never going to get better than that. So we're going to move our discussion along to New York City, which is kind of where we began it, talking about Rudy Giuliani. We're going to talk about the Trump trial, and Michael Cohen has been on the stand. He has been questioned up one side and down the other, and he's actually apparently been doing quite well, all things considered. I wouldn't want to do what he's doing. But there was one line of questioning that got him a little bit off guard. And Kevin, you've been paying really close attention to this. Do you want to kind of summarize what this was?
Yes, and I've been paying far too close attention to this for any healthy adult human being. So he's under cross-examination. They're trying to catch him in a lie. And so the defense attorney has been grilling him until they got to the subject of a call that Cohen made to Donald Trump in mid to late October of 2016, before the election, after the Access Hollywood tape came out. And this is a pivotal call because it's the call in which Cohen claims he briefed Trump about the payment, and there was some allusion to the fact that it was that they were doing something unethical and eventually illegal.
Well, it was one of several calls that dealt with that topic.
Yes, but this is a key call because
yes, it's in a particular window of time.
Cohen and the prosecution highlighted this call from the documents of all the calls off of Michael Cohen's phone, that he says he told Trump some key information about the payment. What the defense brought out was that Cohen had just moments before this call been texting with Keith Schiller about a different topic, which was that Michael Cohen was being stalked by someone who was calling his phone multiple times daily. So he was going back and forth with Keith Schiller, who was Trump's body man at the time, and had just said to him, I have a problem with these calls. As it turns out, the dummy actually mistakenly called once from his own phone, so I've got his number. What do I do? And Schiller said, call me. Okay. Now, the reason that I bring all this up is it's very technical, but the defense is claiming if Michael Cohen called Schiller for that, then in a 1-minute, 36-second phone call, there wasn't time for them to discuss that and then for him to talk to Donald Trump about the Stormy Daniels payment. So with that in mind, if anybody remembers the movie or the play 12 Angry Men, there's a famous scene where they recreate the alleged crime.
It's the angle of the knife.
Right. And the Henry Fonda character acts it out with steps and then the knife and what have you, and convinces these jurors one by one that the defense version of events was indeed plausible. So with that in mind, I think that the prosecution in this case, their version of events is plausible, and we're going to do a little fun exercise to prove that. Greg, did you have something?
Well, there were 12 guys in that movie.
Yes, there's 12 guys, so we're only 4 angry.
Okay, so with that in mind, and by the way, I know I'm hogging the mic at this point in the podcast. I want to plug again that we hope to do a mock jury podcast next week in which we have a simulated jury deliberation to discuss all of the facts of the case and see what a group of listeners who would volunteer for this to see what decision they would come to after like 45 minutes of deliberation. And if you want to be a part of that, please write to us this week at mpupodcast@gmail.com and tell us about yourself and, that you'd like to be a part of this. If we could pull it together, we'd love to have you on the air with us, and we'd love to have you to be part of our mock jury. So again, mpupodcast@gmail.com. I answer all of those emails, so please drop us a line if you're interested. So that said, we're going to do our own simulation and find out whether this conversation can happen in 96 seconds or not. I'm going to play Michael Cohen. I have cast DJ as Donald Trump because that's typecasting. And Greg, I would like you, because you have such a muscular body and you're so imposing, I would like you to be the body man, Keith Schiller.
Love it. The part I was born to play.
And Rebecca, I'm sorry there are no parts for anyone else in this particular simulation. So we're going to ask you to keep time on this, okay?
I'm going to keep time on this. I am very excited to see. I hope you guys have rehearsed this and are speaking in the right kind of New York clip.
Okay, so we're going to start the call. When you say start, I'm going to pretend that Schiller has just answered the phone, or actually Schiller has the first line, and we'll go until the end of the call.
All right. And 3, 2, 1, begin.
Michael?
Keith, yeah. So I got this person calling me like 20 times a day, but the dope forgot to block his number on one of the calls. So what do we do with this?
All right. Text me the number, and I'll have our people look into it. And, of course, don't answer the calls or engage them in any way.
Of course, of course.
Don't worry. We'll put an end to this.
Great. I really appreciate it. Hey, can I speak to Mr. Trump for a sec?
Sure. Hold on. It's Michael.
Hey, Michael, what's up?
I just wanted to update you regarding that PR problem we discussed.
The second one?
Yes, the Lake Tahoe incident.
Okay.
So I just want you to know I arranged the funding and everything's been taken care of.
The payment?
Yes, sir. I handled it myself and the DNA, all signed. It's a done deal.
Great news.
And as far as the reimbursement, I'll handle that with Alan.
Okay, good job. Well, busy day here. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay, gotta run. Bye.
All right. That timed out to 1 minute, 8.56 seconds.
We could have asked him what he had for lunch.
Yeah. I mean, you could have gotten into the fact that the kid was the person making the harassing calls was 14 and that Schiller was...
I don't think they knew that at the time.
Yeah,
Schiller was going to turn it over to the Secret Service. He did know that. He was going to do that. But yeah, so it came in at under 1:30.
Right. So I've been watching, I watched on Thursday when everyone, including Anderson Cooper, I don't know how he came to this conclusion, but he goes, I think Michael Cohen is lying. It's not possible to have had this 2 conversations in 1:30. I'm pulling my fucking hair out because I knew it was possible We just proved it was possible. Obviously, we don't know the exact dialogue that they had, but these people don't have long, drawn-out conversations, especially with Donald Trump when he's in the middle of the final 2 weeks of a presidential election. So, of course, it was possible to get both things done in 1 minute, 36 seconds. God, I just hope that there are people on the jury who think the way I think.
Well, I mean, and just the jury, remember, they heard that recording of Trump and Cohen talking about, I think it was the Karen McDougal payment, maybe, or the Stormy Daniels, and the cadence of how they talked and the amount of information they conveyed to one another in the span of just a few sentences. That tape can't be very long. And Trump was able to ask for a Diet Coke in the middle of that.
I should have written that into the script.
You should have. Run a Coke!
Well, we still have time for that last topic on the rundown.
Harrison Butker's?
Yeah.
Harrison Butker. So he stood up in front of a group of graduating seniors at a Benedictine college and told all the women that what they really need to do is go have some babies. And I think all the women in the room were like, well, I was gonna, but I have a job that I'm starting on Monday. I mean, it was an astonishing thing for me to listen to, as he's having this moment where he's choking up and talking about the beauty of his wife, leaning into her role as a wife and homemaker, and that's what she really found rewarding. He didn't say her name.
Well, I was going to say that one of the things that we really have not talked about or focused on, by we I don't mean just this podcast, but just in general, is the rise of what is called the rad trad movement in American Catholicism. We focus so much on how evangelicals have seemed to go totally off the rails, and they have, though we really haven't paid as much attention to how much a large number of white Catholics have joined them and have essentially taken literally backwards looking at church teachings as a way to effectively justify their love for Donald Trump.
And rad trad stands for
radical traditionalism.
Radical traditional.
So I can't opine on radical traditionalism or Catholicism, two of the subjects I know the least about in the world. Maybe throw nutrition in there, those two subjects. But I do want to say, listen, after this whole thing came, got a lot of controversy and a lot of media hubbub, I went and read through the commencement speech that this gentleman gave. I've never heard of this man. I mean, I probably heard of him during the Super Bowl, but I wouldn't have remembered his name.
He wasn't dating Taylor Swift during the Super Bowl, so no one noticed.
Right. So I read it, and I was actually impressed. Now, I don't agree with almost anything that he said in the speech. I probably disagree with every major point he made in the commencement speech. But I was impressed with how articulate he was, how well written it was, how thoughtful it was. Quite frankly, he seems like a very intelligent man.
Or he has an intelligent wife who wrote it for him because she does everything else for him, so he can earn $4 million a year kicking a ball.
Well, I'll accept that possibility as well. But here's what struck me. I Googled Harrison Butker. He's 28 years old. He'll be 29 in July, but he's 28 years old now. That's just that's like a couple of years older than my oldest son. And even though he gave a very thoughtful, articulate speech, should a commencement address be given by someone with so little life experience? I mean, there's smarts, and I am not doubting that he's a smart man, but then there's wisdom. And college graduates are supposed to get the smarts in college, not from their commencement address. The commencement address is supposed to be about adding a touch of wisdom through life experience and perspective. And I don't think that someone that's 6 years older than they are has yet that kind of life experience. So I am not putting him down in any way, but I really question the decision to offer someone that young the role of commencement speaker. Do you guys agree or disagree?
I think he's probably the highest earner of graduates in the past 10 years from that college. And the development department said, hey, I know. Maybe he'll write us a check if we invite him to give a commencement speech.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
I think,
ding, ding.
Yeah, I mean, AOC I could see AOC giving a speech too.
Yeah, but she's 35 and she's a congresswoman.
But she's 34
Actually, probably 30.
if we want to be really picky
34.
about this.
Okay.
Which is only, wait for it, 6 years older. 6 years older than he is. But if they felt that that's who they wanted, that's cool. It's a private college. They get to do it.
Of course it's their choice. I'm just questioning the choice.
Yeah, it's a dumb choice, but that's why I didn't send my kids there. And with this in mind, I think the next question is, what should we as a country go forward? So, there was all this great goodwill built up for women and the NFL, thanks to one of his teammates, and with Taylor Swift, right? And women are now watching football. And then he comes out and says, women, get back to the kitchen. We don't want you. So the NFL right now is in a spot because freedom is not free. Free speech is not free. We all know that. And there are consequences. So do we say this is bad for our brand? We are looking for more viewers. We want women to come and enjoy. Thus, we should punish him.
No, but they did distance themselves. They said he speaks for himself, not for the NFL. So they did actually do what you're saying without punishing him.
Right, but what does that mean? I mean, he's just this guy, and we're going to pay him, and
Well, everybody has a right to make a living, I think. I mean, we could disagree with what he said, but agree with his right to say it.
Yeah, I mean, if I didn't disagree with Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and I did disagree when the league didn't offer him a new position. I didn't disagree with anything Chris Kluwe said in his book, Beautifully Unique Sparkle Ponies, but he's not working in the NFL either. So I think that those things suck, that you could lose your job over private speech.
Fair enough. Rebecca, why don't you take us home?
Thank you all for listening. If you like what it is we do here, you can follow us on MPU Podcast on Instagram. You can join us as a mock jury to deliberate the Trump trial, possibly contemporaneously with the real jury deliberating the real Trump trial. And you can share our link on your timelines so your friends can see us as well on Twitter, not X, Threads, Facebook. You could skywrite it. I am not going to discriminate against people who want to use older methods of public speech. If you've got a passenger pigeon to carry messages for you, send our link attached to a pigeon. And on that, and thank you as always to Alan Keeney for our theme music. May your memory be a blessing, Alan. And on that note, as the jury goes into deliberation, Greg, what kind of snacks should we be looking for from your kitchen this week?
This week, I'm too busy working on my Donald Trump cosplay. It seems it's a new TikTok thing that older white senators and thirsty vice president nominations are doing. They dressing up as Trump for this. It's really a popular trend. I'm surprised everyone's not doing it because, quite frankly, everyone has a chance to be a vice president in this election.
By the way, should Samuel Alito be wearing a flag pin upside down on his justice robe when he's in court?
His wife dresses him, so...
In that case, yes.